I think it worked really quickly today. We are live. Hi, besties and bosses. How are you doing? Let me just pull this up in the group so I can see your comments because my view otherwise doesn't show me them very well through the Facebook integrator thing. I am looking forward to this conversation. This is one of the topics. I shared this on Instagram stories. If you're not following me on Instagram, not that you have to follow me, but I do bite-sized biz lessons. I say they're 3 to 5 minutes, but they're probably closer to 5 minutes. I do them a couple times a week. If you're looking for more of those nuggets, definitely check those out. Here we go. And I shared a story. I shared a lesson. It was last week or the week before, and this topic in particular was something I put a poll out that quite a few people wanted to have me do more of an in-depth deep dive on. So we actually bumped up this topic. So I had something different scheduled for this week. So I'm looking forward to this because it's something I'm working on behind the scenes, both myself and with clients quite a bit. And I don't think this is a conversation we have very often in the online space. And I think it's actually really, really important if you want to not only create big results, but you want to keep them and not sabotage them away and set yourself up to scale. So let me give a little preface here to in terms of what we're talking about, what we're going to cover. And then obviously, let me know if you have questions, reflections, as we're going through this because I want to make sure I give you all the things you want. If you're on my email list, I probably shared an email, I did share an email around this, and I was sharing the impetus for this. The reason I shared this in Instagram stories to begin with is I'm in a season where things are really great in both my business and my personal life. I'm in momentum, and I don't say this to brag. I share this very intentionally so you can understand the preface for this topic. So I'm in quite a bit of momentum. We've had one of our best quarters. I've had more sales, and I say sales, not cash, because I run a one-on-one business. We're fully booked. So when I make sales, they're often protracted for the future, right? It's not all cash I receive in the moment because of my business model. But I've just seen a really big, last year I think was just for everyone, just more of a contraction year. I've really seen an uptick. Things are just going really well in business. My personal life is great. My marriage is great. I'm in the best shape of my life. Things are just generally really good. And what I was sharing on Instagram and kind of what prompted this is I really realized, and what I've just learned over time is when things are good for me and when things are good across my business and personal life, that is usually when I need to lean into my coach and into my self-coaching and into my tools the most. And I'm going to explain why that is. But I find for many, many business owners, for many of my clients, this is actually one of the most uncomfortable places to sit and where so many people, myself included, will sabotage away results or sabotage an aspect of their life, if not their business. I also wanted to chat about, because this came up as well, one of the things I shared another day on Instagram is I was sharing just what a wonderful weekend I had, and just how great my clients are doing. My clients are getting great results right now. And I also, this was last week, the week before, I shared this on Instagram that my mom was in the hospital for a couple of days, and without giving way too much of her personal information, but just it was a little scary because we didn't know what was going on with her, what was wrong with her, and she was there from Friday, I think, until Monday or Tuesday before she got released. And I lost my dad a couple of years ago, so it's always scary when your parents are in the hospital, but that I think can just be a little bit even more so when it's the parent you're close to who's still with you. And yet with that going on, business was still thriving, life could still be really good, I could still be really happy. And so that's what I want to chat about today. I want to chat both about when things are good, the conversation, the work I'm doing with myself and with clients to not sabotage it all away. And I think there's something here that is a little nuanced that I want to speak to. And then also just how do you keep getting results and holding results and not pushing away results when life is lifing? Because it is just wild to think that any of us are going to be in business for a long time. I've been in business for 8 years. I plan on being in business for, until I stop working, and I love my work, so I don't plan on stopping anytime soon for, decades still, right? I hope I'm like the weird old lady who's still online coaching y'all in the future, right? It's crazy to think that we're going to have longevity in our business and not have life circumstances come up. And it's also wild to me to think that then if life is lifing outside of your business, that your business has to be affected, that your revenue has to be affected, that your overall well-being has to be affected, or that you're supposed to push through it and just be fakely toxically positive all the time, pretend that you're just high vibe so that that's all that creates safety in your business. Both of those seem a little nuts to me. So that's what I want to dive into today. If you're here live, say hi. I always like to know who's here. And then if you're in the replay as well, when you're going through this. Let me know if this is landing for you and what questions you have. So just a couple high level things. I want to talk about the fear that no one seems to talk about that is keeping people small, under earning as you sabotage your success. We're going to talk about what no one tells you about getting everything you want in business and life, and I will. That's the title of this, and why this is essential to understand so you know what to expect and can avoid sabotaging success. We're going to talk about the hardest work most business owners will ever do that has nothing to do with hustling harder, and how this allows for more visibility, success, money, and why this is required if you want sustainability. Okay, let me just pull up my notes because otherwise, hey Rachel, nice to see you. Otherwise I will lose my, I have like so many, this is one of those topics. I think it's I don't know if y'all will relate to this. I think sometimes the work we're doing so often with clients and so often ourselves, it's almost like we forget that we haven't talked about this a ton, and this is important for people to hear. And I don't think I've talked about this a ton, but it is very, very important. So let's talk about the fear I think people just don't talk about very often. And I think this is one that if you're in this group, my guess is you're a high achiever, you're driven, you have big goals. Even if you don't identify as a high achiever, I bet you want big things out of your life. I'm just gonna wager a bet on that if you're attracted to my work. And my guess is that you also want to do things on your term and you don't want to burn out, and maybe you've been burnt out in the past, right? I'm guessing those are some truths for you as well. And if you're someone like that, what I see, the other guess I'll make is that for many of you in this group, you have some sort of, because you're human, trauma with a capital T or lowercase t, and you've probably got some societal conditioning, if nothing else, even if it's not from a trauma, that has told you why it's bad, wrong to have a lot of good things, right? I think all of us probably come from a time where it's like, it's almost like you should be so grateful for what you have and you shouldn't want more. And, you know, many of us, especially as women, but I know I have, you know, male clients and a lot of men in this group as well, I think have been told, you know, don't be too much, don't take up too much space, like don't shy too much, like that's, how's that going to make other people feel? So I think that's a pretty common thing for many entrepreneurs, at least I think, that are going to be in this group. And what I see, if any of those land for you or feel true for you, like, hi, you're normal, that's me, that's all my clients. What I see for both myself and for a lot of my clients is, as much as there might be a fear of failure, there is such a fear of success that is really very viscerally real in your system and in your subconscious. And I think what is sneaky, if you're driven, if you're high achieving, if you've created success, is it doesn't appear that you have a fear of success because you've created a certain amount of success, right? So I think it then feels very easy just to notice the fear of failure and to be like, I don't actually have a fear of success. Like, look at what I've created. But what I have seen is I cannot think of, I'm sure I do have some clients I've been doing this for a long time. But most of my clients, I find it's not that all success is scary. It's that they will hit a certain threshold of success, whether that's making a certain amount of money or like what I was sharing earlier, and this is why this is really relevant, where every aspect of your life feels good, or where suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, I have everything I've ever wanted. Where it's a level of success that is beyond maybe what you have previously experienced to have. And I think that can feel very, very confronting and or be very, very scary. So what I find hopefully this will make sense for everybody, because I think the concept of fear of success makes sense, but I do think for the people in this group, if you're here, fear of success just presents a little bit differently, because many of you, I bet so many of you are like, you did great in school, like you're just good at the things you do. You've been a success before, even if business is maybe feeling challenging, or you're struggling to book clients or make money because there's a learning curve in business, or because you're newer in business. My guess is the career you moved from, the life you moved from, like you're coming into business because you were a success in some other aspect of your life. You're an expert at what you do, right? So like the idea of being scared of success can seem like, oh, that's just so not me. But a couple of things that come up with success that I see for myself and my clients, right? If you've created a certain amount of success, you also know what's required to create success. And so then looking at especially scaling your business, and that's the title of this conversation, right, is what's required to scale sustainably. If you're looking at, wait a second, I've created this amount of success and I want to double this or triple this, our logical, smart brains think that means I'm going to have to double or triple the work I did to create this success. Now, I think most people in this group understand that scaling does not mean actually double or tripling the work, right? It's actually having your revenue outpace your expenses. You could simply raise your rates or create a new offer, right? It's actually about like doing the same amount of work and or less work even, but doing the same amount of work and making more money. But that's our logical, rational brain. Our subconscious mind, especially if you've ever had burnout, especially if you've ever hustled hard, especially if you've ever like had any of those experiences, like, wait a second, I had to do all of this to get here. I cannot even fathom doubling or tripling that. It feels very, very confronting. And I think that way, for a lot of high achievers, for a lot of my smart people, this will create a fear of success and a huge sabotaging block, because what you will essentially tell your brain is, we don't want to scale. Or the only way to scale is to double and triple the amount of work and effort we're doing, which will then create a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then you'll create the type of success that is not sustainable. And you will sabotage that away because you won't be able to keep it up. And the narrative will then be like, look, see, we've got the evidence. We can't scale. Like, more success actually is terrifying. It is horrible because it just requires double, triple, 3 times the amount of work. We can't keep up with that. Fuck that. Who wants that? I'm good here. This is good enough. Right? And then I see the other side of the spectrum where it's, and y'all, I got both of these going on in my brain. So just so to normalize this, right? I'm not actually scared of success and holding lots of clients and holding money, but I definitely have had to unwind the like hustle harder, work hard story gene in my brain, and that idea that even though I help people scale all day every day to $1 million, I've helped plenty of people scale to high multi-six figures, $1 million. Many of my clients make more money than me, so I see how the sausage is made, so to say, and that's a horrible saying. So I can see it's not about just doing more work and just hustling harder, and yet that wiring, that story is so ingrained in my brain. Every time I hit a certain amount of success, right, to scale that sustainably, I have to really do the mindset work and to really notice I do have a bit of a fear of creating more, because my brain thinks, well, the only way to do that is to double or triple the work. Hopefully this is making sense. And the other side of this I see for so many people is the other part of fear of success that I can see come up for so many people is this amount of success is safe, right? Like if I create this level, whatever that is for you, I know for me, I have an income threshold where it's like I can make up to that, and I feel like I'm successful, I'm good, I'm safe, but I'm not shining so brightly that I'm going to piss everyone off, that I'm going to suddenly have people hate me, that I'm going to suddenly alienate people, that I'm suddenly not going to be relatable, that I'm going to suddenly lose friends, or that everybody is suddenly going to ask me for money to pay for things. I think it's different for everyone, but the other side to this that I see for a lot of people with fear of success is and this is why I think it's sneaky for people in this group, because I think you will all see you will be able to create a certain level of success, no problem, and there will be a threshold where your brain's like, anything more than this will get us hate in some way, or this will create responsibility in some way. I think everyone's got a different story there. But those pieces I see make it really tough to scale and to scale sustainably, because to scale, right, we have to not only be available to bring in more, but we have to be available to bring in more without doing more work, right? And we have to dismantle some of those stories and narratives. Otherwise, it will not feel safe. And your subconscious mind, I know we've talked about this in different ways before, but I always think about your subconscious mind, your identity is, and I want to make this not overly obtuse or confusing, but your identity is really the way you see yourself. It's all of your mindset. It's all of your constructs. Your identity, your subconscious mind sets the parameters and the boundaries by which you live your life, and how you see yourself, the stories you tell yourself to be true on a subconscious level. That is what your brain really looks for congruence. So it will do everything in its conscious power to find evidence for what matches up with that, with what's congruent, and to have you take actions and to create results that are really congruent with how you see yourself, with what that identity, with what those stories are. Let me know if that's making sense. So congruence is kind of the name of the game here. So if the congruence in your brain is we have to double or triple the work and hustle harder to scale, or to scale after a certain point, like after you make X amount, right? It's gonna be different for everyone. For some people it's 6 figures, for some people it's $1 million. But after that, right, that is going to mean you're a money grubbing biatch, or that people don't like you, or that you've lost touch with reality, or that you're gonna now have to pay for everybody's bills in your family, whatever the thing is for you. You're gonna have far more taxes you can't handle. You're gonna be out of control. Whatever that is, if that's a part of your identity and your subconscious, your conscious mind is looking for congruence in terms of, let me find evidence for where that's happened for other people. you can find evidence to make anything true. I just put a post up on Instagram that I hope people understand the right way, which is like there's a lot of bad business advice, but there's a lot of bad business advice online or on social media that seems really true because it matches up with the limiting beliefs or the congruence or the identity we have or what we want to be true, and so therefore we will believe it. And I think this is kind of the same thing here, right? So you'll find that evidence to be true, but you will also find ways to sabotage, to bring yourself back to the reality that feels congruent and true with who you are. Because who you believe you are, what that subconscious mind, like what those stories are, even if they're not as much success, not as much money, even if they actually are like feel in reality like really crappy and uncomfortable, they feel congruent, and in that way they feel safe and true. And so your brain is filtering for that congruence, for that repetition and that congruence, and that is what feels familiar and safe, not for what is actually true and going to help you scale sustainably. Let me know if this is landing and making sense, because I know I'm talking like a lot of brain stuff here, but I feel like this is so important. And so this is why we talk so much about upper limiting and self-sabotage, and how what you'll see, and why I have to be so mindful when I'm in a season of things are going really well, especially across all aspects of my life. This is why for a lot of you, again, it'll depend what that threshold is, but I find it's either a certain level of income, a certain level of visibility and success, or a certain level in your bank account, or when just kind of like you're suddenly like, wait a second, I've got everything I've ever wanted. This is why it will start to feel very uncomfortable for many people, and why we will upper limit and sabotage away, because there is that lack of congruence with what your subconscious mind believes to be true about you and your identity, but also what it believes to be familiar and safe. I've done a live stream on upper limiting. I'll see if I can find it and tag it, because I think that's almost a whole another conversation. I need to sip my coffee. But if you don't know that concept, Gay Hendricks wrote The Big Leap. It's such a great book. I read it every year. But it's essentially the idea that we all have a thermostat for how much goodness we will allow into our life. And when we go past that thermostat, it feels very essentially dysregulating to our system. And we will find ways to sabotage to bring ourselves back down to the thermostat that feels familiar. Even if it's not on paper, consciously as in air quotes good, it will feel better to our nervous system because, again, it's more familiar and that feels more safe. And so I'm putting context onto Gay Hendricks' concept, but that's essentially what the concept is, and that's what we're talking about here. And so this is so important. This is when I look at supporting clients to scale. The strategy part is, of course, it's actually important. And a big part of what we talk about as well when I'm supporting clients to scale is, are they in the right place to scale and their capacity? Because capacity is a big part of what will come up with your fear of success, right? You don't have the capacity to hold more people. You don't have the capacity to show up for what that means. And capacity is also required to scale. And in many ways, scaling is solving a capacity problem. I talked about this in my free masterclass, 20K Months Multiplied, which is evergreen. I'll drop a link for that, where we talk through the 5 components you need to sustainably scale. What we're talking about here is more the mindset piece, but I talked more about the strategy side of that and the capacity side of that. So if you're interested in that, I'll drop a link for that, because there are different things your business needs if you're going to sustainably scale. But this is one of those pieces. And so the strategy element, I don't want to make it sound like if you're going to scale and you're going to do sustainably that isn't important. Of course it is. Having the right container, having this strategy to scale in a sustainable way, having the systems and processes, having the team in place so that you actually are bringing in more revenue without at a higher pace than your expenses, but also so that you're not just hustling harder and harder. That is so essential. But this mindset piece here is such a big part of it. And so often when I'm finding clients are hitting that income ceiling, or myself, or when things are good, right? This is what I have to be mindful of. This is what we're looking at. And what I notice, and what I think is really interesting for all of us to start to pay attention to, is to check in with, you have a fear of success. You can have a fear of success and a fear of failure. Both, welcome to being human. You can absolutely have both. I think to see, though, both are simply fears. And it's not like one is better than the other, but I would check in with yourself and ask yourself, is there a fear? Like, if you get everything you want in your business and your life, or if you scale your business and you do so sustainably and you're not having to hustle for your worth, and you do just have a bunch of money come in and it is kind of easy, and your personal life is good and your relationships are great, I really would love for you to check in and to see like what comes up around that, because I think all of us say we want those things. But it's Carolyn Elliott. I think it's Carolyn Elliott who has the quote where it's, you don't get what you say you want, you get what, it is Carolyn Elliott. You don't get what you say you want, you get what you actually want. This is that quote in play. We all say we want these things, but if subconsciously we have these fears of what's going to happen, you're going to have so much more responsibility, so much more work. You're going to be working 24/7. People are going to hate you. Everyone's going to ask you for money. People on the internet are going to troll you. They're going to come after you, right? If those fears are associated with more success with scaling and with scaling sustainably, you won't get what you say you want. You'll get what you actually want, which is either going to be, I don't want subconsciously to scale, and then you will find ways to sabotage to keep bringing yourself back to the identity, to the homeostasis, to what feels congruent and safe. Or you will scale, but you'll find that it feels really chaotic, or that you're doing so in a way that is exactly the fear you have, because that is on a subconscious level what you're saying is okay, right? So I think those two pieces are just important to play with, or to check in with, and to see. What I find for most of us is we generally have one or two core fears that really come up. And I think that can be very helpful to identify, because then you know, oh, like, here's that fear coming up. And then most of us generally have one or two core ways we like to sabotage and to essentially upper limit. I know I have two. One of my favorite things to do when things are going really well is to pick a fight with my husband to create a problem that doesn't exist. So I know this now, right? And I can make fun of it, but I can also spot it. And I can also say to my husband, hey, things are going really well. It feels uncomfortable for me. Like, let me just check myself on this. And you know what I mean? We can just have a dialogue around it. The other thing I know is my brain really has a hard time letting go of the must work harder mentality to create more results. And I'll want to just find new projects and things to work on. But I know this about myself now, right? I'm just very aware this is one of my ways to sabotage. And so this is such an easy thing for me to bring to my coach, or to notice in myself and to self-coach around, or to check in with. And so I'm saying this here as an example. Your ways to sabotage, your ways to make it harder to scale sustainably, what comes up for you might look very different than what comes up for me. Let those be examples. But when you can start to identify them, it's much easier to spot them and see them for what they are, as opposed to having the full-blown fight, or as opposed to working and hustling your butt off, or creating a whole brand new project for absolutely no reason. I cannot tell you how many times I have done that in my business, but now I can spot it and stop it before it really starts. And that feels important to say, because I do find I'm trying to think, I probably said this recently on a live, you know, the whole saying, it's like new level, new devil. I really don't think that's true at all. I think it's new level, same devil. And so the more you can start to see this at every new level, as every time you scale, every time you up level, you can just be aware there's probably going to be a threshold you hit where that same devil is going to show up. It generally isn't all that, I find our stuff generally isn't all that different. It just like tries to get sneakier and sneakier and wears like different outfits, and it like tries to trick us better, but it's generally the same patterns we all have. You just get to get better at noticing it, stopping and spotting it, and not creating a lot of extra chaos for yourself. And that's going to allow you to not only allow you to scale so you're not sabotaging yourself back down, but to do so in a way that's sustainable. Because a lot of what I see for a lot of clients when I'm helping them scale sustainably, a lot of times when things aren't sustainable, it is because of the deep subconscious desires our brain have for chaos, and all of our brains are wired to look for problems and to want to find a problem to solve. And that's everyone's brain. Like, this is not just like if you're like a certain subsect of the human, this is a survival mechanism. And what I work on with clients is helping them start to find, like, you need to find a better fucking problem, because your brain is looking for problems all day, every day. And if we don't know how to spot the sabotage, or to spot our brain's want for chaos and to find problems and to have something to chew on and to solve, that will really create, you might still scale, but it'll feel very unsustainable. That's what often creates the overwhelm and the overworking and the burnout. There can be other factors as well, but I find that can be a big part of it. So if you can start to notice this, this is a lot of the work I do with clients, then you can start to spot that and stop that in advance. Or one of the easy things to play with here is to know that your brain does want to find problems. That is what feels soothing to your brain, especially when you are having more and more success, and to just start to find better problems to give your brain. I think I shared this during COVID when business was booming during COVID. It was also a very weird time. I bought myself a keyboard and taught myself to play the piano, not because I've stopped playing since. Not that I have any desire to be a great pianist or anything, but that was just a really great problem to give my brain so that it had something else to occupy. It just needed something to chew on. So I didn't bring that desire to find a problem to solve into my business when things were going really well. And so that could just be a really easy hack for your brain. The other work, I'm just going to see here if I have a question. Let me know if you do have questions. I hope this is valuable for all of you. The work I focus on with my clients, so yes, it's finding those better problems and teasing my clients with that. But a lot of the work that we're also doing, and I think there's some nuance here, that allows you to stretch your capacity for success, but also that allows you to get more visible and to make more money and to bring that in and to sustain and to do so sustainably, but also to hold on, not just to have sustainability, oh my gosh, I can't say the S's today, but also to hold your results, right, to not sabotage them away, is looking at creating more safety in your nervous system, in your brain with success. So I'm going to talk about safety from a couple different lenses because I think this comes up in a couple different ways. And this safety, integration, and normalization, I think they're all part of the same little pocket of work here. This is probably some of the most important work I do with my clients. Yes, again, the strategy is important. Of course, words that sell, the masterclass I had, it ends the replay today. We looked at the messaging there. I have a marketing strategy intensive. That is so important. We look at sales. That is so important. So I'm not discounting all of that. I'm not saying that isn't also important, but I have just seen over and over and over again to be true. You can have the best, correct, right strategy in the world, but if there is a part of you that does not want more success, that does not want to scale, that feels like it is not safe to have more money, that feels like it is not safe to get more visible, that is subconsciously saying, I don't actually want that, right? You don't get what you say you want, you get what you actually want. It will sabotage, it will push away, it will find ways to make that not happen, or you just won't show up for your strategy. I have another client I've been working on this with, and she's genius. She's brilliant at business. She's genius at messaging, marketing strategy, right? The big piece for her that we've been working on is feeling safe, getting more visible, and showing up in a bigger way. That's the piece. It's not like she needs a better strategy. There's little tweaks to strategy that we all have, but this is the piece that's unlocking scaling and doing so sustainably for her. So with safety, because I think that can be one of those really obtuse concepts where it's great, Kim, what does that even mean? Safety. What I think a couple things around this can just be helpful to understand. So overall, when I'm saying we're working on creating safety, it's what I think about is what is the I feel like the core wound is almost another obtuse concept. But what's the thing under the thing for you? What is when you have a fear of success or a fear of failure? But we're talking really about scaling sustainably here and taking up more space, being more visible, making more money. What is the core thing under the thing, the core fear that comes up for you? Again, most of us have one or two things, and I want you to keep drilling down until you find one or two. Most of us have one or two things. For a lot of people, it's not actually being good enough and everyone finding that out. For some people, it's being hated. For some people, it's literally a safety and the bottom falling out and everything going away, and that might be more of a control, show up as more wanting to control. If you can figure out what that is, then you know what the work is to do for you to create safety around, where it's how can, and what I want you to invite you, and what I'm working on with clients is not how do we say when you have more success, then you're finally good enough, or then or if you're scared the bottom's going to fall out, how do we create safety by seeing it's never going to go away? Or if you're scared that people are going to hate you, how do we create safety and saying of course everyone's always going to love you? That actually doesn't feel very safe to most people, because that means you're you're only safe if you have more and more success. That does create some of the hustle mentality. You're only going to feel safe if you're basically perfect, right? This is where perfectionism comes from. This is where we get really controlling. This is where we do overthink. What I'm really looking at are two things. Is one, how do we create safety for you, even if the scary thing when you have more success happens, right? If you're scared of success, so let's say part of your fear of success is that you're going to have more and more responsibility, and like what comes with having to hold more people and have more responsibility, and like you're going to lose some of your autonomy and freedom. I think that's a really big one for people. If that's the case, it's not how do we convince you that when you have more and more success, you're not going to have more responsibility or that you're going to have the same exact amount of freedom. I mean, that might be true, but I think that is maybe not the case for a lot of people. It's more how do we create safety that even if you lose a little bit of your freedom, that's a trade-off that feels good to you and that you're in control of that and you're in choice in that you can always change your mind. Or how do we help you see that yes, even if you do have more responsibility, you're totally equipped, you can totally handle it, right? Like that's how you actually create safety. It's not how do we otherwise we're creating avoidance tactics. How do we avoid this bad thing from ever happening, which is also then where the sabotage comes from, because the way to avoid that from ever happening is by avoiding having more success, right? If the link in your brain is more success creates this bad thing from happening, hopefully that tracks. So how do we create some safety and help you see, essentially, even if the scary thing happens, and knowing that the scary thing probably will happen at some point in business, not to create a story, but like it just probably will, and that you're going to be okay anyway. And then the other piece with safety that I think is not what people think at all, but also creating safety if the bad thing doesn't happen. So what I mean by that, because I just said it'll probably happen. It probably will happen from time to time, but not as much as not nearly as much as you think. So I'll use myself as an example. I've shared this so many times. One of my forever fears and edges is the more success I have, the more things are good, the more people are going to hate me and come after me and like attack me and all the bottom like bad things are going to happen. And look, has that happened to me? Have people not liked, as I've shared, more success in my business? Absolutely. Have people made comments to me? Absolutely. Has not everybody liked what I put out as I get more visible and I have more success? Absolutely. There's 17,000 people in this group, I think. It's not like everybody in this group is like, yes, I love what Kim is saying in her content, or yes, I agree with what she says, or that I've never, had someone not give me a nasty comment or anything like that. But the amount of times that has happened is so negligible over the last 8. I've been coaching for 10 years, in business for 8. I can count on one hand the number of times that's actually happened and actually been maybe triggering, right? For all of the countless encounters otherwise, it's happened such a small percentage of time. And the funny thing is, those few times it happened, this is where the other kind of creating safety comes into play, where it was actually such a gift, because I realized how it was so much scarier in my mind. It was so much more built up in my mind than when it actually happened. It was temporarily triggering, frustrating, and sometimes laughable, because I so didn't agree with what someone was upset about, and I so backed myself in things, right? It was so not actually as big a deal as my brain had made it out to be, but it also just gave me the evidence that it wasn't a big deal and helped dissolve a lot of that fear and create safety to also help me see I could handle it, navigate it, move through it, and everything wouldn't fall apart. But when I think what happens for so many people is there's almost two things happen. If the bad thing doesn't happen for you, right? One, you're constantly it's like your brain is wired for problems and to find problems and to solve them. I think there's a way in which the fear can become bigger and bigger and bigger, because you're just constantly like, well, it's going to happen and it's going to be so bad, I need to look out for it. And that can be its own kind of screwed up thing, because your focus is all on avoiding this thing from happening. Your focus is all on how do we spot this, like how do we spot anything that seems like a threat, instead of getting your eyes focused on scaling and taking the action and creating capacity and feeling safety with having more and more. Hopefully that makes sense. But I also find, again, this is also, if the creating safety and the bad thing not happening is so important, and seeing it won't be that big of a deal is so important, because again, I think on a subconscious level, a lot of us kind of want them, like we're kind of looking for the bad thing to happen. I think there is that weird soothing element, because our brains are looking for chaos. Our brains are looking for problems to solve. There is something very satisfying to like finding something and being able to fix it for multiple reasons, right? Then you don't have to focus on scaling and having more success, right? It kind of like keeps us in that loop, but it just gives our brain something to chew on. It feels really familiar. And so a lot of times I'm also working with clients, and this is something to play with, is how can you also create some safety around the scary bad thing not happening, not finding that. And again, give your brain something better to occupy itself around. Because otherwise it will be very easy to say, fine, I can handle the haters, for example. But if there aren't any haters, I think that means there's an impending threat. And to spend all of your time looking for the haters, looking to figure out how to write your content so that people don't hate you, looking to figure, I'm using this as an example, this might not be your thing, but like everything becomes a strategy for how do I make sure I can handle this or not have this thing happen, right? This is when we spend a lot of work and time. It's a lot of muscling around things, as opposed to like maybe this isn't even a problem or a thing. Like it'll happen from time to time and I know I can handle it, but it's also just not a thing. So I can focus my time and energy on the very few action steps that are going to actually allow me to scale and that are actually going to allow me to do so in a sustainable way. Otherwise, we're just creating a lot of extra work and effort for ourselves. I hope that that makes sense. You have to let me know if you have a question around that. I'm just looking at the time here. There's one other quick piece I'm going to share here, and then I did want to share a little bit because I promised on Instagram I would, just the other side of this whole conversation of like what it happens when everything isn't going well, and you know, life is lifing. But the other piece that in terms of the safety that I work on with clients and that I would invite you to play with as you're creating more and more success is integration and normalization. So we do a lot of work on integrating each level of success and really integrating this as the new normal and making it not such a big deal. And this is going to sound fucked up and I don't mean it the way it sounds. We make such a big deal out of every small win. If you're a client of mine, you know, it's like you do anything and I'm like, how are we celebrating this? Like I want to invite everyone to celebrate every small action step because every small action step is what compounds and gets you big results. And celebration is so important. It actually fires up the dopamine systems in your brain and gets you addicted to wanting to do more of what you did in the first place. And it really is helpful for motivating yourself into action and for consistency and for building momentum and for continuing to get big results. We celebrate every single win. And what I find to be true is when you have a fear of success in the next level, when we make every big win such a big deal all of the time, like it is the end all be all, as opposed to celebrating it because it is a big deal. But when it becomes like it is the thing that like now you're finally good enough, or now you're going to be safe and rich forever, or now you can like never have to worry about money again, like when it just becomes so heightened and such a big deal and we lose some of our groundedness in it, that is actually when it can start to feel very unsafe and very dysregulating in your nervous system. I think we forget that high excitement and nervousness and fear, they kind of operate in the same wavelengths in our nervous system. And so yes, I want you to celebrate everything. I want you to make a big deal out of the big wins you have. And there's something very powerful to starting to integrate those big wins as your new normal. And it's not such a big deal. What I have found to be true is the more I integrate my success and the more I integrate, like I'm thinking about, so we make around 30K plus cash per month from one-on-one up to about 40K per month. When I first started making 10K months, 5.5 years ago, that was such a big deal. But the more that became normal to me, the more I was able to keep making that every month, and the more I was able to double and triple that. Whereas to now, it's not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm so grateful for that in my business. But the more I can just say like, yeah, I'm just someone who always makes this kind of money, right? The easier it was for me to scale. And so the more I'm, of course, grateful and celebrating our business and our success, but the more I also see like, yeah, it's also just sort of normal that this is what we do in my business. The easier it is to sustain that, and the easier it is to not have all of that fear get kicked up around what it means to create more success, because it is simply just normal and true. And the more you're able to integrate and normalize, the more you also take these big wins off the pedestal. And I think that can create, make it a lot easier to keep your results, but also set you up to scale to the next level. I really do think we have to integrate a level before scaling and keeping that, right? Like we see people who have a lot of big income jumps, and some of that is because of, you know, launch model or something like that, or just normal ebbs and flows with business revenue. But I think sometimes part of it is when you haven't integrated that new level of success, it does feel like such a big deal. And that big deal can be both exciting and be put on a pedestal, but also kick up all of the fears of success that come along with it, right? That's when the sabotage gets kicked up. So when you can integrate it, normalize it, right? That's when you can start to have that be more stable, and then it is easier to scale from there. Okay, last thing, just real quick before we hop off, because I did want to touch on this. And this feels just so important, what I was saying at the beginning of our conversation. if you're in business for a long time, I just want to normalize this, that it is so normal to have big results and to also have life things happening. And that if life things are happening, and life things like I was talking about, like my mom was in the hospital, or if you're going through something personal, or you're sick, and I wanted to just bring up a couple of things there, like how do you keep getting results, how do you keep running your business when that's happening. Maybe we need to have a part 2 on this. If you want me to dive into that more, definitely feel free. But also like, is that sabotage? So 2 things. When life things are happening, that is not sabotage. You did not make those things happen. I think there's some of the like manifesting language that makes it seem like if you're having good things happen and then something bad happens, like everything is your fault and you manifested everything. And life just like that is just the human experience in life. And this is getting maybe a little too much into the woo, but I also believe that sometimes things that appear on the surface to be in air quotes bad or not convenient or a challenge are often happening for us, serving us. Like we can't see how the dots connect until we look backwards and see how things fall into place. So I do believe in that, but you didn't manifest. I didn't manifest my mom getting to the hospital, for example. And that feels very important to say because I just think there's some crazy nonsense in our online space sometimes. So that is also the case. That is the truth. And you don't have to be high vibe to keep getting big results in your business. Being high vibe absolutely makes it easier to run your business, right? When things are like going great across the areas of my life, it does make it easier to create success unless, right, I'm self-sabotaging like we just talked about, right? Unless you're upper limiting. But it's not required. In some ways, I would actually say being high vibe everywhere is probably harder for a lot of people because of the self-sabotage, because of how uncomfortable that is for most people, and the self-sabotage aspect we were talking about. But what is required when people talk about that, it's not that you have to be happy and positive and everything has to be going great in your life to have success and to make money. That is just simply false. It makes it easier. What is important is that you believe in your business and in your ability to create success. You believe in your ability to show up and to create results. You want to show up for your business and to create results, right? That's kind of what we were talking about, the sabotage part. If there's a part of you that doesn't actually want more success because you don't believe you can handle it, or you believe bad things are going to happen, right? That will create a challenge and a block or create sabotage. But things that are making you unhappy or sad or that are lifing that you have to navigate, that are challenging, that are hard, if you still have a belief that I can handle showing up for my business, I can handle taking on clients, I can handle bringing on money, I want this, like this feels good, I'm capable of this, I'm capable of being successful. If you still have that belief there and that desire and want there, both of these things can coexist at the same time. I have more examples than we have time for in this live stream today, in both my life and in clients' lives. So I want you to see it's that belief part, and that belief part, not even in like, I believe I'm amazing or I believe I'm happy. That's literally not required. There are plenty of people who are like gazillionaires who probably are the happiest people in the world, but they believe in whatever it is they're selling, and they believe in their ability to make money, and they believe in their ability to handle running that business, making the money, right? Like that is the part that is required. And then the other thing I would say is then having some clear strategies that you believe in and that you believe and trust you will show up for, right? Having some systems and processes, believing that that's what's required to create results in business. When you have that in place, that's how it becomes, I don't know if easy is the right word, but that's how you can start to trust that even if life is lifing, right? You don't have to suddenly like just figure out how to like fake it till you make it, or pretend to be happy or pretend to be high vibe when actually you're worried or stressed about something. But because you have both the belief and trust in yourself to show up, to run something, to handle something, and you have the strategies and systems in place that you trust your team member or someone's going to show up to run, right? That will keep your business going, and that can allow you to get great results or even to scale despite what's going on in your personal life. So I know I'm just like hitting that on like a kind of like a small piece here at the end, but that feels so important to speak to because I think this becomes another story, right, where we have to be so mindful because it's the story and the belief, not if you're high vibe or not vibe. If your story is, I can't handle success in my business while life is happening, or making more money in my business, like I don't deserve that because that means I'm a bad person if someone in my family is having a hard time, right? If you have those beliefs, yes, that will make it challenging. If you have the belief that I can still show up for my business and I'm totally a good person and that is mutually exclusive from what's going on with someone else, and it's okay for me to make more money and my strategies work for me and it's easy for me to show up here and I want to bring in more sales and I want to bring in more money, and I'm also someone who like can make money and deserves that, and like that has nothing to do with what's going on with someone else, and I can also be a human who has empathy and compassion for someone and who's worried about someone I love, like that those can mutually exist, then one does not have to outrule the other. That does not make you like low vibe and mean that you're suddenly going to have a disaster in your business. But I do think we want to be mindful, because if you have the story, right, those stories where it's like that's not okay, or with more success bad things happen, or you're going to manifest something bad, like that's the only way you deserve success, right? If those stories and beliefs are coming up, that's when there will be a challenge. So hopefully that distinction makes sense. You do not have to be high vibe to create great results, to scale sustainably, but it is that the story you're telling yourself, what you actually want, not what you say you want, and then literally the systems and strategies you have in place that make all the difference. Okay, hope that was valuable for you. I'm gonna just turn my timer off because it's about to ding, because I have a client call right after this and I don't want it to make a bunch of noise. But if you are listening to this and you're hearing this and it's like, oh, this might just, I'm like ready to scale and I'm ready to do so, and to do so in a way that is sustainable, where I'm not hustling and burning out, and also in a way where I'm not sabotaging my results away, because I would like to avoid those income highs and lows, and I would like to make, whether it's consistent 10K, 20K, I'm always talking about how I want you to make 250K years and above, not because you need to make more and more money, but I find that's a place for most business owners where you can pay for your expenses and also pay yourself really well. If that's what you're ready to do in your business, if those are the results, you're like, that is me and I'm hearing this and I want to do so in a way that is sustainable, that allows me to keep those results. And I want to have that combination of support that's got me in mapping out the simple and clear strategy, that's got me on figuring out the systems I need, the team I need, the support I need on the back end, so my business runs like a well-oiled machine to bring in that revenue. So even if life is lifing, right, I can trust my business will work for me, but that's also got me on the mindset side of things, so I'm staying out of my own way, so I'm not sabotaging results. So I'm not creating crazy stories, not calling anyone here crazy, but just the stories that the online space will tell us, that if something's going on in your life, now you can't make money in your business, or if you're making money in your business, you now have to suffer and have a disaster. If you want someone who's going to lovingly support you and also help you support to really shift those patterns so that you can continue to make more and more money and hold on to that money, to keep that money, unless you choose to spend it on things you want to, that is how I support my clients. I am starting to meet with potential clients for one-on-one coaching spots opening up in June and July. So I will drop a free consultation link for that below. If you're listening to this in the vault, we'll make sure that's in the episode show notes for you. And then as always, we have my strategy intensive, Your Marketing Multiplied, which is a week-long strategy intensive where we dial in your messaging and map out a holistic marketing strategy so you know exactly what to focus on every day, week, and month to get noticed by the right people, to bring them through a customer journey and client pipeline so you always have sales coming in consistently in your business. So that is always available. I will drop a link for that as well, and then a link for a free consultation if you're interested in support on either or from either one of those. Then I'll be back next week. We'll have another topic for you. Thank you all for hanging for this conversation. I hope it was valuable. I love you all so much. Bye.